صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الأول بلا أول كان قبله والآخر بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار النادرين وأجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. والحمد لله على ما رفنا من نفسي وألهمنا من شكري. والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبو القاسم محمد وعلى آله طيبين طاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صلوات. First and foremost, I would like to send my condolences out to Imam Zaman, Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, and then send my condolences out to you all as well. And before I begin, I would like to address a little slip of the tongue that happened last night, in which I could have said courage or bravery, or courage or bravery, in which I said a more slang term. It started with a B. It was a slip of the tongue. It was driven by emotion. Obviously, most of you know that I was not born, or I was not raised as Muslim. And then by the time I accepted Islam, I accepted Sunni Islam. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided me to Ahlul Bayt, when I was Sunni, I gave my life to Islam. And I changed my name immediately to Yusuf Abdul Shaheed, because I wanted to shed my other name. I didn't want to even remember that life. And when I was exposed to Ahlul Bayt, I fell in love with the Ahlul Bayt and one individual in particular. And I chose to add this man's name to mine. And in Muharram, this time, all of my lectures are not for you even. They're for myself, remembering the promise that I made to Ahlul Bayt. The promise that I made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at times, especially in Muharram, I can get excited like everyone gets excited. And the B word came out instead of bravery or courage. So please, inshallah, you'll forgive me for that. But understand the motive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted us with the holy Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. And the events of Karbala, as my young sister had so elegantly reminded us, has two sides. The emotional side, which causes us to cry and have a hatred towards oppression. And the educational side, which if we follow the example of Imam, we will get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And last year, we discussed the events of Karbala clearly from an akhlaqi perspective. All of the exalted characteristics and morals and manners of Ahlul Bayt, the morals and manners that Imam taught us even through Karbala. As we've mentioned time and time again, that Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam taught us the entirety of Islam through the events of Karbala from many different perspectives. And this Muharram, we've been discussing the lesson that he's taught us concerning Sirat al-Mustaqim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, "Did I not take a covenant from you, O children of Israel, that you would not worship the shaitan? Verily he is a manifest enemy to you, and worship me. Hada Sirat al-Mustaqim." This is the straight path. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us that the straight path is twofold. The first part is rejecting shaitan. The next part is obeying Allah. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam, all of the Anbiya for that matter, and all of the A'imma alayhimus salam have been sacrificing the entirety of all of their lives to to teach us the concept of La ilaha illallah, which is to reject shaitan, reject the idols, reject all falsehood, and to obey Allah. And Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, in the events prior to Karbala, in the events leading up to Karbala, and on the 10th of Muharram, in the desert of Karbala, he exemplified or demonstrated, first of all, what Sirat al-Mustaqim is, and also how to travel it. He rejected Yazid and died in prostration. Imam Ali rejected Muawiyah and also was struck in prayer. The example of Ahlul Bayt, which the most clear example or the most exaggerated example or the most tremendous example of this philosophy of La ilaha illallah is the example of Imam Hussain. He did not give his hand to Yazid, but he gave his head to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what we've been focusing on, of how to truly traverse the straight path. There's how we think things are, and then there are how things actually are. Or there are how things appear to be, and how they really are. And in many cases, we have been deceived. In some cases, we've deceived ourselves. In all cases, it has been shaitan who has helped us with this deception. Because since the beginning of time with mankind, shaitan has been doing a great job of misguiding. He even misguided Adam and Hawa in the lower earthly Jannah. And he's been coming better and better and better as the thousands of years have passed. So before we can successfully traverse the straight path, and we can actually and truthfully and sincerely carry out La ilaha, we must know our enemy. We must know the characteristics of our enemy. We must know the schemes and plots of our enemy. And we must know the weapons of our enemy. And this enemy who I'm referring to is shaitan. How can we defeat an enemy who we know nothing about? How can we defeat an enemy who we haven't took time to try to decipher his plots and plans? Which is why we've been focusing for these last few days on this concept. Now, the first weapon, the first assault, I'm going to use the word assault. The first assault that shaitan attacked us with, or he attacked during the time of Adam, alayhi salatu wasalam. He assaulted mankind during the time of Adam, and his weapon was jealousy, hasad. So, shaitan assaulted mankind during the time of Adam using the weapon of hasad. His second assault on mankind was during the time of Nuh, and his weapon was the aql. He used the aql as his weapon. Just for a reminder for those who may have not been here, hasad is jealousy. And there are two types of jealousy. There's gibta, which is aspiring to be like someone who is better than you, and there is hasad when you want someone who has blessings, you wish they were removed and they would come down to your low level. So that was the first weapon that shaitan used, and the example was through Qabil and Habil. Qabil, as a result of jealousy, killed Habil. Because jealousy is the worst disease, and it causes us to do stupid and silly things. And shaitan did a stupid and silly thing, and Qabil did a stupid and silly thing by killing his brother, and as a result will be cursed eternally. Now the next assault was on mankind during the time of Prophet Nuh, in which he used the aql, the intellect, as a weapon. Shaitan tricked mankind into thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the intellect that he gave us so that whenever he gives us a command, we can think about it and decide whether it's to our benefit or not to our benefit, whether we do it or not. Because obviously we're aware that Allah tells us implicitly and explicitly what to do and not to do. We don't have to put too much thinking into that. But the aql that Allah gave us, the intention is to be the sifter or filter for information concerning Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to know Him. Before Allah says do or don't, He wants you to believe. Before there's furu'ud-din, branches of religion, there's usul-ud-din, the roots of religion, which is beliefs. So before Allah says do or don't, He wants you to believe. But shaitan tricked us into using our intellect to disobey Allah. And we know that whenever you disobey Allah, the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes from you is the intellect. He will make us also do stupid things. For example, first of all, Shaitan did appear in human form on this occasion, and Shaitan himself devised the plan of gathering one man from different tribes, from 40 different tribes, to attack Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because he said that, listen, if you have a man from each tribe, Bani Hashim by no means can retaliate. That'd be too much for them to handle. So they'd have to just accept some blood money and get over it. Which was actually a very cunning plot. And so these men gathered, and listen, remember, when you oppose Allah, He takes your intellect from you and causes you to do stupid things. Doesn't mean you're dumb all the time. It's just when you need to be dumb or you need to be ignorant, you will be ignorant. So these men surrounded Rasulullah's house, stayed up all night, or tried to stay up all night to wait until the morning when Rasulullah wakes up to run into his house and kill him. I just want you to think before I listen to this now. Some of the kids are smiling and giggling so they understand. They're attempting to kill Rasulullah, so they surround his house and stay up all night themselves outside in the element to wait until he wakes up in the morning so they can rush in and kill him. Why not just rush in while he's asleep and get the job done? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took their intellect from them, and obviously Rasulullah walked out right in the midst of them. But see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took their brains from them. They couldn't even think right because they're opposing Allah, and this is what Allah does. Another example of this. The pagans are in hot pursuit of Rasulullah. Now remember, the reason I'm giving these examples is proof that whenever you oppose Allah, the first thing He will take from you is your intellect, and you will begin to do silly things. So they're in hot pursuit of Rasulullah. Rasulullah and a companion who followed him climb up the mountain and go into the cave. Now, this is not like climb up a staircase, a couple staircases and a couple steps and go into a cave. This is, they have to struggle for some time to get up to the mouth of the cave. They do that. Those who are in hot pursuit also traverse this mountain and struggle to go up this mountain. They get up there and say, hey, there's a spider web at the entrance of the cave. Let's just go. He's not in there. So they make the jihad of going up this mountain, which is a struggle. They get there, see a spider web, and turn around and leave without checking it. Wouldn't you be like, okay, check anyway. We came all this way, check anyway. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took their intellect from them. Yes, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Salawat if you understand this far. Let's go further back in time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked Shaitan, why didn't you bow down when I told you to? And he says, because I'm made of fire and he's made of clay. What does it have to do with him obeying Allah? Allah didn't ask him who was made of what. He said, prostrate to Adam. But look at this answer. He says, why didn't you prostrate when I told you to? Because I'm made of fire and he's made of clay. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? It has nothing to do with anything. The angels were made of light and they prostrated. So what they were made of had nothing to do with anything. It was the fact that he did not obey Allah. Now understand this. This is something that needs to be understood clearly as well, because this example is also very, very important. Shaitan said, Allah, I accept and I believe in you, but I do not accept and believe in Adam. Yeah, understand that he's your greatest creation. Yeah, understand that his knowledge is superior. This, that, and the third. I accept you, Allah, but I reject Adam. This is a quality of Shaitan. He accepted Allah, but he didn't accept someone who was superior than him, but in his mind he was superior. Have you seen this before? Or have you seen this any other place? Shaitan says, I accept you, Allah, but I do not accept you, Adam. I accept you, Rasulullah, but I do not accept you, Ali. Shaitan says, I accept you, Allah, but I do not accept Adam, which is part of that. He has to accept Allah and also accept Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Likewise, as Muslims, we are to accept Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wasallam and also accept his successor, Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Do I have to spend a lot of time on this issue, or is it understood? There's a parallel here that is to be learned. That Shaitan, remember, Shaitan knew Allah, but it was his what that caused him to be cursed? Right. Did he have a choice in accepting Adam? No. He had the choice to obey or disobey, but Allah told him to accept him. Did we have a choice to accept Imam Ali? No. Allah told us to accept him. And the believers accept Allah and Adam, and they also accept Rasulullah and his successor. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So it's important. These are some of the things that we can learn from Shaitan. And we have to know him, we have to know his characteristics. Because if you realize the sunnah of Allah doesn't change. As they say in certain terminology, history repeats itself. In certain aspects it does. But Shaitan teaches us so many lessons. And we do not want to be like Shaitan. And we cannot, what is the reason why we have to know his characteristics? So that if we have any of them, we can have them removed. And also to recognize them in others. Why do we need to know his schemes and plots? So we can avoid them, inshallah. Why do we need to know his weapons? Likewise, so we can avoid them. So now, let's discuss what Shaitan is doing right now. What is Shaitan doing right now? First of all, does Shaitan conceal his playbook? He tells you what he's going to do. I'm going to misguide them. I'm going to arouse their desires. And I'm going to make them slit the ears of cattle. This is important because as we discuss Karbala and as we discuss Ahlul Bayt, sometimes we embark upon certain topics that may rub individuals the wrong way because they have accepted it as Sunnah of Rasulullah or Sunnah of Ahlul Bayt when it is not. And these things are not intended to hurt anyone's feelings. It's the fact that we have to remain loyal to Imam Hussain. We have to remain loyal to Ahlul Bayt. For example, Imam Ali was mentioned, he was given advice and says, listen, why don't you just leave Muawiyah where he is? He says, if I do that, I have to abandon my religion. We must uphold haqq and defend it at all costs and fight battle and wage jihad against it, even if it costs our life as well. This is not a game. And there are many things that Shaitan has made us slit the ears of cattle. And obviously it's not the issue of being caught up in these things, it's the issue of getting unraveled from this snare. This is stuff that's in the Quran. So it's important we understand these things, that Shaitan revealed his playbook. As I mentioned, Shaitan is like the pitcher or the football player, Tom Brady. He doesn't go into the huddle. Or Peyton Manning doesn't go into the huddle. He tells the defense, hey, I'm about to run this play to the right on 2. And you can't stop it. He's showing disrespect to his opposing team. And then if he runs the play and they can't stop it, he's like, told you. This is what Shaitan does. He tells us his playbook. I will attack you from front, back, right, and left. Wherever there's truth, wherever there's Sirat al-Mustaqim, I will be there waging jihad on you. He tells us this. But so how can we ignore it? How can we not reassess? How can we not reevaluate ourselves to say, hey, has Shaitan gotten me? Because understand this, dear brothers and sisters. If you don't know anything about Shaitan, if you don't know his qualities, if you don't know his tactics, if you don't know his weapons, then he has you. You are a victim. please come forward so we can have the brothers that are coming to have room on the ladies' side as well as the men's side, inshallah ta'ala. As we're moving forward, for those who just came in, I apologized for the slip of my tongue yesterday. I got caught up in emotion, and instead of saying courage or saying bravery, I said another word. It was emotion. Obviously, Imam Hussain and Muharram is an emotional time for me, as I mentioned to some others, which is why I adopted his name rather than any of the other Imams. And which is why many of you, whether not here today or not here yesterday or tomorrow, find that I will attack certain issues aggressively. And that is by design. Because at the day of judgment, we will all be questioned, what did we do? Allah is going to ask me, did you address every issue that you saw? I can't say, well, Allah, I wanted them to like me, so I didn't talk about that. Allah, I wanted them to invite me back, so I didn't want to talk about that. Or some of the brothers and sisters said they don't feel comfortable about talking about that. That is no excuse. I will be in the hellfire quicker than anybody else. You understand? So this is not an attack on anyone or any ideology. This is about truth and falsehood. And I made a promise. And I'm not concerned whether everyone has to deal with their own promise. So I just want to mention that while I mention the emotion that I was caught up when I said the B word instead of bravery or courage. Which is a good segue as we discuss what Shaitan is doing right now. During Adam's time, alayhi salam, when the doctrine of Godhead, when the belief in Allah was not firm, what was Shaitan's tactic against it? People weren't sure that there was a God. People wasn't sure that there was a creator. People weren't sure that they had a Lord. What was Shaitan's tactic to oppose that? It was simple. He said there is no God. Adam's trying to establish that there is a God. Shaitan is saying no, there isn't. That was his tactic. Simple. The exact opposite. Is that understood? Adam was trying to establish that there is a God and there is one, and Shaitan was simply trying to oppose it because Godhead was not firmly established in the hearts of the mankind at that time. Okay? Now, God was firmly established in the hearts. Now people are saying, no, there is a God. And it's firm, and Shaitan is not able to remove that doctrine. Now what has his tactic modified itself to? Now he's trying to establish false gods. So when the concept of God was not established, Shaitan's tactic was to oppose it entirely. When the concept of God was established, his tactic was to make you believe in false gods. What Shaitan does is, if he can oppose your religion outright, he will do so. When he loses hope of that, he will use your religion against you. Write that down, please. When Shaitan can oppose your religion outright, he will do so. When he has no hope of opposing your religion, he will use your very religion against you. And that's the first example of it. When the concept of God was not firmly established, he simply was propagating that there is no such thing as God. Simple. When the concept of God became firmly established, he had to modify his tactics now. So now his tactic was that sun is God, or the moon is God. He established the concept of false gods. Is it understood? Salawat if you understand. When the concept of nubuwwat or prophethood was not firmly established, what was Shaitan's tactic? There is no prophet. There's no such thing as a prophet. When the concept of nubuwwat or prophethood was not firmly established, Shaitan's tactic was, there is no prophet. There's no such thing as a prophet. That's just some make-believe stuff. When the concept of nubuwwat and prophethood became firmly established in the hearts and people believed in prophecy, now what did Shaitan's tactics switch to? False prophets. And there are numerous. Even today, recently there were false prophets. In our century, I believe there was even a couple men who claimed to be Mahdi. But nonetheless, and there was a few, I don't remember the names offhand. Matter of fact, there was a woman who claimed to be a prophet, and a male claimed to be a prophet. They both had followers, and I believe they married. I forget their names right now. It's not even important to remember their names. But there were several during the time of Rasulullah who claimed to be prophets. So I want you to understand this very, very clear, because many of us are stuck in some denial state. When the concept of God was not firmly established, Shaitan opposed it outright. There's no such thing as God. When the concept of God became established, Shaitan established the concept of false gods. When the concept of nubuwwat, or the concept of prophethood, was not established, Shaitan simply opposed it. It's void, it's invalid, there's no such thing. When the concept of prophecy and prophethood was firmly established, he established the concept of false prophets. Right? When the concept of imamate was not firmly established, Shaitan simply opposed it. There's no such thing as imam. During the time of Imam Ali, during the time of Imam Hassan, during the time of Imam Hussain, alayhimus salam, anybody who claimed to be imam was slaughtered. So no one wanted to be any imam of anything. They wanted to be leaders and this and that, but they didn't want to claim imamate, because if you claimed imamate, you were going to be slaughtered wholesale. But in a time in which now certain imams were living a long time, having big followers, a lot of whom's money was coming in, then you had other individuals claiming imamate. Imam Sadiq's son even claimed imamate. And other individuals and other members of Ahlul Bayt, cousins and relatives, were claiming imamate now. So when the concept of imamate wasn't firmly established, or you would get your head taken, Shaitan simply opposed it. When the concept of imam was being firmly established, the Shaitan established false imams. Imam this, I'm leaving names out. Imam this of this school. Imam that of that school. Imam this of this school. I'm making 4 names. And Imam that of that school. You can fill in the blanks. Now these became imams. We have 12, somebody else has 4. We have correct imams, now there's the other imams. You know, if you notice, there's only one Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Imam Hassan said, part of his treaty, we don't call anyone Amir al-Mu'mineen except Ali, but they were calling everybody Amir al-Mu'mineen. So understand, and I'm repeating it because I want you to get it. I'm really painting a picture tonight, so you can understand what Shaitan's doing today. When the concept of God was not firmly established, Shaitan's tactic was simply to oppose it. There is no God. When the concept of God became firmly established, Shaitan's tactic was modified to the concept of false gods. When the concept of prophethood was not firmly established, Shaitan's tactic was to oppose it outright. When the concept of prophethood became firmly established, now he established the concept of false prophets. When the concept of imamate was not firmly established amongst the people, we know it was established amongst the Shia, but when it wasn't widespread, firmly established, he simply opposed it. But when it became firmly established, then he established the concept of false imams. Now, false gods, false prophets, false imams, what is Shaitan doing today? Now that when the concept of following ulama was not firmly established, Shaitan simply said, follow your own desires. When the concept of following scholars became firmly established, he established the concept of false scholars. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, and when I read this, it made my heart drop, which is why I don't play in the least. He said, there will come a time in which those who maintain my religion will not themselves be worthy of paradise. Meaning they are not practicing what they preach. One Maulana told me that, because I asked him something, I said, Maulana, even in the house that I went to, I know brothers who are famous and give a lot of good lectures that weren't offering prayers regularly. I said, did this happen in the big house? He said, yes. He even told me a story of a Maulana who was an atheist. Why? He didn't believe in God, but religion was his business. Religion was his business. false scholars. What is a scholar? Many of you think that the imama and the abab make a scholar. Newsflash. These are the clothes of the students of a scholar. To be more precise, these are the clothes that all men are supposed to wear when they offer at the very least their prayers. Look at your marja. Look at your book of fiqh. It's mustahab for all men to wear this when they pray. But the bottom line is, this is not the clothing of a scholar. It's the clothing of a student of a scholar. I told the joke one time, seriously, I said, if I go down under the pier, get a homeless person with a nice beard, clean him up, take him home, put him some of my clothes in and bring him here, guys will be shaking his hand and kissing his hands simply because of the clothes he had on. Rasulullah said there will come a time in which the scholars will be greedy, lack piety, and only respected for their good clothes. Imam Ali said if a person is known for their knowledge and not their good deeds, he is not a scholar, no matter how long he's been studying. A scholar, first of all, is not one who reads a lot of books. A scholar is one that knows he does not know anything. Because if he does not know anything, he will continually be seeking to know what he does not know. Let me explain to you. You say, well, how can there be a false scholar? This is one way it happens. Before you can be a good scholar, you should first be a good Muslim. You should be off. You don't go to Hawza to start offering 5 daily prayers. You should be doing these things regularly before you go to Hawza. Understand? So you have people now, many of you know, let me make this clear. Let me go back, because I want this to be very clear because it's very important. A dear brother said to me the other day, he said, being a Maulana, you don't make a lot of money. That may or may not be true. But he said, what did you do, Sheikh Yusuf, when you chose this profession? I did not choose this profession. I don't know who would choose this profession, knowing the responsibility that they have. If they speak the truth, they will be hated. If they don't speak the truth, they will be cursed. Who wants that burden? Nonetheless, most Maulanas, even Maulanas like that I'm familiar with and have a relationship with, Maulana Abbas Ilya, Sayyid Abbas Ilya, Maulana Beg, obviously, and other Maulanas, they know, and they've said in their lecture, I've heard them, if you are seeking to be a scholar, you do not deserve to be one. How did I get here? Maulana could not go someplace. He sent me, and then that's what happened. Knowledge is neutral. For example, nuclear energy. Nuclear energy. If I am a righteous individual, right? If I'm a righteous individual and I just discovered nuclear energy, I can do all sorts of good things with it. I can make people's energy bill go down or go away. I can do a lot of things with nuclear energy, right? With it. If I am a corrupt individual and I develop nuclear energy, I can take over the world. I can hold a lot of countries hostage and get paid, become wealthy. The knowledge is neutral, but the purity or religiousness or righteousness of the one who's wielding it is the issue. So let me use something you relate to. The knowledge of Islam. If I'm righteous, you know what? I can learn this religion. I have a little bit of courage anyway, and I can talk to the people and try to guide them right and try to save some souls. Maybe Allah will forgive me if I do that. But if I'm not right, wow. I can get $10,000 for just 10 days of lectures, which is 10 hours. That's more than lawyer money. This is a lick. This is a good field to get into. And I'm overseas, so the money rate is huge. So if I make 10,000 here, that's big time in rupees or whatever it is. Wow. Woo. I definitely don't want to say anything that will have them not invite me back. I definitely don't want to step on any toes. Newsflash. If a sheikh, scholar, or marja has everybody liking him, he is not doing his job. So, if I am a scholar, no matter how learned you are, no matter how long you've been studying, and I am loyal to Ahlul Bayt, and I am righteous, you will speak the truth every time you get a chance, not expecting a return visit. If you think this is a business, and you're just worried about your pockets, you will only say lectures that make people feel good so they can say, man, he really had us hyped up. Make sure he's back here next this or next that or next this. This is how shaitan gets you. And then there are straight up criminals that, for example, there are some marjas who say that certain things that these 30 marjas say is haram, they say it's permissible. So we have those type of things too. But the bottom line, is this a secret? No. Many of you have many small books in which, for example, Bundle of Flowers. If you don't have Bihar and Water, if you don't have Kafi or any of these books, you can go in there where Rasulullah has mentioned the corruption of the scholars. So shaitan says, first of all, where does shaitan live? Where does shaitan hang out? Sirat al-Mustaqim. Bismillah, say it. Wherever there's truth being taught. Why do you think when I said the B word, I didn't say that Imam Hussain made bayat to Yazid or something like that. I said the B word in change for courage or bravery. It's like, get him out of there. Shaitan is here. He wants it to stop. Who are we talking about for these past couple of days? Shaitan. Think about it. This is how he works. So this is what happens. Shaitan cannot oppose the fact that Shia, we do taqleed. We believe in finding a leader that knows more than us and following. Most of us don't take time to find out who's the most righteous of the scholars. It's good if we go by, who people say the most popular one, that's fine. But our days now, we do marja shopping. Well, what does this marja say about this? Oh, he says that's haram? Okay, I don't want him. Okay, what does this marja say about this? Oh, he says that's haram? I don't want him either. They look for this one lone marja who's way out in right and left field and say, now he's the one that I like. These are tricks of shaitan. False gods, false prophets, false imams. It is easier to do what? False prophets. False scholars, rather, I'm sorry. And I wrote a letter to Maulana one time, Maulana Beg, because of some of the issues in the Hausa. And I said, and I quoted from Kafi, there's a whole section on scholars, and it said that if a scholar does not practice what he preaches, his words will bounce off them like rain bounces off rocks. Because, as I've mentioned, a scholar is not about just teaching, it's also about guiding and leading. This is why Ayatollah Khomeini was hated by other scholars. People have a misconception that it should be that ilm, knowledge, and piety, and faith are all in one body. It's not that way now. It says if you got knowledge, if you've been in Qum for X amount of time, you're qualified to sit on my pulpit. This is serious. This is what shaitan is doing now. Did he not establish false gods? Salawat if he did. Did he not establish false prophets? Salawat if he did. Did he not establish false imams? Salawat if he did. Now, I'm going to carefully choose my choice of words tonight. You are out of your mind if you think shaitan stopped there. You are plumb crazy. That's what they say in the country where my mother's from. You are plumb crazy if you think that shaitan stopped there. When at the easiest out of all of the above is false ulama. And if you notice, many scholars talk about that. And it has nothing to do with how long you were in Qum or how short you were in Qum or whether you were in Qum. It's about your loyalty to Ahlul Bayt and practicing what you preach. This is what shaitan does today. And then also you may have also this aspect too. During the time of, not during the time of, one quality of Imam Hussain, and we're speaking about Imam, I could say this about all the A'immah, alayhi muslim, but Imam Hussain was that there's two contradicting characteristics, right? There's two contradictions. What are the two contradictions that you find in the men of Ahlul Bayt? bravery, and ilm. And on all of these type of things. It's very rare that you find the best warrior also be the most knowledgeable. In our time we have, I'll give you an example. Obviously I'm not saying this specifically, there are those exceptions, but more commonly now we have two extremes. We have the super duper knowledgeable who may be lacking on the courage. So they know the truth, but I'm not going out there and telling them people that. I may not make it back to my car. Then we have the super duper brave who don't know anything about the religion. Very rarely do we find even a decent balance. We did in Imam Khomeini, which is what made him do what he did. He had the knowledge, but he also had the courage and bravery to stand up to what he stood up to, which is that rare balance. It does happen, but very rarely. And a lot of times, even some of the Maulanas that are sincere to Ahlul Bayt, that are very pious and righteous, some of them may not be as brave as others in addressing issues that nobody likes to be not liked. Right? Does anybody like to be not liked? Well, would you rather be not liked by those who are sitting around you or not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Ahlul Bayt for disobeying and betraying them?
Not liked by people sitting around you.
Right. There's a saying that, and a brother reminded me tonight, alhamdulillah and mashallah and jazakallah khair, that if you seek to please the people, they will not be pleased with you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will most certainly not be pleased with you. But if you seek to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will make those pleased with you who need to be pleased with you. Salawat if you understand. So this is the tactic. There are other tactics. Don't think that this is the only tactic, but this is one of the huge tactics of shaitan. And many people are like, well, you know what? Everybody who's in Qum is mutaqi. Everybody who has a turban is mutaqi. And then there are those who make mistakes. I made a mistake by not using bravery and courage. Another brother made a mistake by misreading a book and saying something, nothing to behead him, nothing to lynch him or string him up to the flagpole. It's just that we're humans. But the bottom line is, we must beware that everybody is not qualified to sit here. And if you are here, if Allah put you there, you have an obligation to be loyal to Rasulullah and loyal to Ahlul Bayt. Even if it causes everyone you're talking to be angry with you. Because the reality is, if you're speaking the truth and they're angry with you, they're not really angry with you. They have a problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they have a problem with Ahlul Bayt, and that's a whole another issue itself. So it's important we learn about shaitan. And now to get back into more tangible tactics of shaitan, he likes to stop us. As I've used the analogy yesterday, he knows that we will not abandon the Ahlul Bayt. So what he does is try to cause us to water down our religion. I use the analogy of a cup of chai or a cup of Kool-Aid that is perfectly blended, and if you keep adding water to it, it will become diluted and lose all of its potency. That's what shaitan does to the religion. He keeps adding things and adding things and adding things, because he'll add this, not everybody will accept it, but a large number will. But he has something for those who don't accept that. They'll be doing something else. So keep pouring water on the teachings of Ahlul Bayt and the teachings of Allah until it's watered down and not effective. We have to be mindful of this. Understand this. It is not good enough to just listen to the lectures, say, yes, that's true, 100%, and not apply the knowledge that is gifted to you by Allah and Ahlul Bayt. Shaitan makes us think that, hey, everything he said is true, but alhamdulillah, he's not talking about you. You're good to go. You're safe. Your religion and your religious level is at its peak. You don't even have to worry about anything. You don't miss a modulus, so you're guaranteed Jannah because of that. These are also the trickings of shaitan, the trappings of shaitan. And understand that he attacks us according to our level. When it comes to the ayatollahs and the marja and the sheikhs and scholars, he attacks them in a different way. If they're muttaqi, what he does is say, well, you know what? These guys do all of these mustahabat. I can't stop them from doing that, so I'll make them change from doing it for the sake of Allah to doing it to have a big famous name amongst the people. And once that happens, they're not doing all of these mustahabat for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore. They're doing it so people can say that they're muttaqi. There's a hadith that I learned that may clarify this, and this is a result of shaitan. There's a hadith that mentions that on the day of judgment, mujahid will be questioned, and Allah will say, what did you do with the bravery that I bestowed upon you? And he says, I defended Islam and fought against the enemies of Islam to please you. And he says, you're a liar, and the angels say you're a liar. You did these things so the people can say you're brave and they will love you. And guess what? They did love you. Hellfire. He asked a man who was very wealthy, and Allah says, what did you do with the wealth that I gave you? He says, well, Allah, with the wealth you gave me, I built all of these masjid, I built the centers, I did all of these humanitarian efforts so I could propagate Islam. He says, you're a liar. You did all of these things so the people can love you and you have a big, huge, famous name. And guess what? The people did love you and you achieved that. Hellfire. He asked the scholar, what did you do with the knowledge that I gave you? Oh, I was propagating Islam so that I can, propagate the truth and guide the people and enlighten them. He says, you're a liar, and the angels testify you're a liar. You did these things so the people can say you're so knowledgeable, you're famous, and they can love you, and they did, into the hellfire. Your intention is huge. Unfortunately, the truth is, I heard a horrible tale of a brother who didn't do any type of learning, but became famous for doing musa'ib. And how he began doing masa'ib, because he wasn't very religious, he's in college, there's a group of other college students say, listen, we haven't been religious, we're Shia, we don't know anything about Shia, we need to get back on track. We need to get right. And even though they were born Shia, they had never went to a majlis during Muharram or Ashura, and they did it like, we gotta get a grip, we gotta get a clue. So the next year, they call a scholar and say, listen, we're only a few, we don't have a lot of money, we want to get back, to Ahlul Bayt. We want to become back attached to them. Can you please come and do majlis? And he said, you can't afford me. You can't afford me. Like, wow. I've heard of Maulana. There's several Maulanas that I consider my personal friends and my personal tutors. He told me, I was listening to him, and someone invited him, and they didn't have any money. They wanted to invite him and had not any money a little. He said, don't worry about it. I'll come on my dime. That's what it's about. There are Maulanas who have agents, will not travel except first class, and must have a ticket for their business manager. This is huge. This is huge. And the reality is this, which is sad. The Maulanas, no matter whether they're just a sheikh, whether they're Hujjatul Islam, whether they're Marja, the ones who speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, they are hated, and they're not as famous as the others. The others bring packed crowds and a lot of money to the center, and that's what it's about. This is how shaitan dupes us. So you go to the majlis, and you go to the center, and you get all of these lectures that make you feel very good, hype you up. This is how shaitan works. This is how he works. And obviously we could add into the fact that the enemies of Islam also send their enemies to Qum and their enemies to Najaf to learn and infiltrate. So shaitan is working in a lot of different ways, and being that we rely heavily on our scholars and scholarship, you think shaitan is going to leave that alone? Of course not. You're crazy if you think he's going to leave that alone. He's already proven through false gods. He's already proven through false prophets. He's already proven through false imams and false scholars. And the reality is, you think that you can pick them out Clearly, no. As we've mentioned, does shaitan come with falsehood purely? Does shaitan come with pure falsehood? Why? Because you can easily spot it. Clip right today. That's false. It's garbage. Get out of here. Is he coming with truth? So what he does, he mixes the two. He mixes the two. And the average layman is not going to take time to decipher it. They don't have time. They're worried about, trust funds, car payments, house notes, mortgages, and all this other stuff that distracts them from deciphering this. These are tricks of shaitan. These are tricks of shaitan. And this is what he's doing right now. We've mentioned that he likes, for example, if you obey the Quran, you are a Shia Wahhabi. Forget the Wahhabis. If you obey the Quran, if you are a hijabi, if you are one who is loyal to Ahlul Bayt, I'm talking about super loyal, you obey them to the best of your ability, above average, you are a Shia Wahhabi. And you're disliked by most of the community. This is what shaitan does. He likes to establish disunity by any way possible. And he likes to encourage us. Understand this. The Anbiya are pulling us towards truth and Allah. Shaitan is pulling us towards falsehood and away from Allah. And this is a tug of war that we're all in. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop for no matter who it is until they die. So it's not enough. You don't understand. We are sitting here focusing on him, which is huge. Because Imam Hussain manifested La ilaha illallah. Imam Hussain rejected the shaitan. The shaitan amongst the jinn and the shaitan amongst the mankind. Shaitul in. But obviously, the thing between Imam Hussain and us is he had complete and perfect knowledge of his enemy. We have very little knowledge of our enemy. And the knowledge is not hidden. It's just that we haven't taken time to find it out. And he's getting us. He's getting us. And he's attacking our children first. And we have to fight him. You have to understand this. You don't just bow down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You bow down to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shaitan bowed down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he did not bow down to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And understand, if you don't, the reason that we defy authority is because we don't have faith in that authority. So when we defy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would never try to outthink him. You would never try to match his wisdom. How can you put your wisdom against the all-wise? How can you put your knowledge against the all-knowing? But shaitan has us doing that through the aql. The assault that he waged on Prophet Nuh's son. I don't see the wisdom in it. This is huge. This is huge. And it's amazing because when we talk about shaitan, we should literally be scared. And not scared to the point of where we flee from him, but scared to the point where we use all of the armor that the Ahlul Bayt have given us to wage jihad against him. And in one word, what is the armor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that can cause us to successfully defeat the shaitan? Obedience. And while we're on the topic of obedience, it must be understood that obedience and faith are not the same. A Muslim, a true Muslim is one who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is obedient. A mu'min and a mu'mina is a whole different thing. And so obedience does not cause you to get truly close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is faith that causes you to get truly close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want Muslims. He wants mu'min, mu'mineen, mu'minat. But here's the roadblock. La ilaha illallah. Before you can get to illallah, you must successfully carry out la ilaha. It's to the point now where we claim to be followers of Imam Hussain, but we will not obey him. We claim to be his loyal soldiers and soldiers of Mahdi, Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. But we won't obey him. We gather every Muharram and every Ashura to commemorate the tragedy, but we don't do what we can and make our sacrifice. Imam Hussain is pulling us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shaitan is pulling us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just think. The prophets, all of them, spent many, many years trying to establish haqq. True? Why is it that shaitan can undermine that almost instantly? Think about it. All of the Anbiya spent years, some hundreds of years, some a couple thousands of years, or 50 years, or what have you, to establish haqq. And almost instantly, shaitan can undermine it. Why is that? Isn't this correct? That the Anbiya spent their lives, however long they were, to establish haqq, and after their death, almost immediately, shaitan will undermine it. Because all it takes to break something is that quick of time. Ghibat is what? Backbiting, right? Why is it so heinous that if you backbite during the holy month of Ramadan, your fasting is void? Why is that? Why is it so heinous that the penalty, if you do it during the holy month of Ramadan, your fasting is void, and you got to make it up, and maybe pay kafara or whatever? But why is it that serious? I'll inform you if you send a loud salawat. A person may spend 15 years becoming muttaqi, or 20 years becoming muttaqi, or 30 years becoming muttaqi, waging jihad against their shaitan and obeying the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, and then instantly someone will backbite them and ruin their whole reputation, all of their effort with the people. Think about it. You spend years and years to improve yourself, purify yourself, become worthy of even attempting to be Shia, and then someone backbites you and ruins your whole reputation amongst the people. That's the same as, for example, we want to build camcorders, and we have the whole factory, and the camcorder comes down the assembly line, the plastic, the wiring, the electric, and all this other stuff, comes out the end, and then you smash it. That's what shaitan does. The prophets tied the knots of Islam, took time and many years to do it, and shaitan comes and says, whoop! That's what he does. That quick. And the reality is this. He has done it throughout history, and we seem to have neglected it because he's doing it now. After every prophet, when that prophet died, there was chaos and mayhem. Then Allah will send another one. Then Allah will send another one. But this is the trend. And we're victims of this now, and it's like shaitan has lulled us to sleep. And the reality is, we focus now on the children because shaitan focuses on our children. We focus on everybody, but we put effort on our children. Because we know shaitan attacks the children. And there are two children who are exemplary in showing their loyalty and fulfilling their promise to their imam, being related to the imam. Aun and Muhammad. Aun and Muhammad were not much older, or maybe the same ages as most of the youth here, male or female. And look what they exemplified. Look how they taught us at their tender young ages how to be loyal to their promise to the imam and how to defeat the shaitan. So this proves, Aun and Muhammad prove that you can defeat the shaitan at any age through obedience. You can defeat the shaitan through any age through loyalty to Ahlul Bayt. You can defeat the shaitan at any age through following the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Quran and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon all of them. And look at the sacrifice. Look at Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha. The fact that she requested and begged her brother Imam Hussain to let her children fight, to let her children represent her in the battlefield, to let her children defend the religion, to let her children defend Imam Hussein's legacy. Her young children. Look at this. We tell our children, no, take the hijab off. I don't want them talking about you at school. No, I don't want my young teenagers who are going, shave the beard off. I don't want anybody knowing that you're a Muslim at the school. Having the children timid and scared. Why Zainab wanted her children to go out and die for their imam. All we have to worry about is ridicule. You're a Shia, you're a Muslim. So what? They're only words. And we have our children scared to death. The children are brave and want to wear the hijab. The youth want to wear the Islamic clothes and grow the beards. And the parents stop them where Bibi Zainab is saying, Imam Hussain, please let my children die for you. Please let my children sacrifice their lives for Islam. Please let my children give their lives so you can live a little bit longer. She considered this a favor from her beloved brother. And how do we teach our children? We teach our children to be scared and timid and be scared of their own shadow. Aun and Muhammad. What have we really learned from them? What have we really learned from Zainab? Peace upon all of them. They showed us how to be truthful to their promise, how to be loyal to their promise. They showed us how to defeat the shaitan that wants us to cling to life, the shaitan that encourages us to cling to life, that encourages us to cling to the dunya, that encourages us to cling to these meaningless and worthless things. This is shaitan that encourages that. Aun and Muhammad didn't want to go play iPod. They wanted to go defend Imam. They didn't want to go play in the playground. They wanted to go defend their Imam. They wanted to go and defend Islam. And they did this. And they proved that age is just a number. Age is just a number. But what are we going to do concerning our promise to Imam? No child can say, this is just about the elders or the elders. And no mother or father should say, oh, when you guys grow up, you can do this or that. It's about now. It's about the present. It's about our Karbala. It's about Imam Hussain being pleased with us. He knows what we're going through right now. He knows what we're speaking about right now. He knows whether we've been truthful to our claim and our promise. He knows what we're teaching our children. He knows what we're not teaching our children. And it takes a woman to show us the bravery that the men should have. Bibi Zainab. She sacrificed her own children. And most people, think about it, we cry over this. Whether the tears flow, or whether we hurt inside, or whether we cry in the comfort of our own home. Bibi Zainab very rarely cried over Aun and Muhammad. She cried over Imam Hussain. She very rarely cried over her own children. She wanted them to sacrifice their lives for the Imam. She wanted them to defend the religion. She wanted them to do what the others would not. You know how many that Al and Muhammad killed. 1 4 horsemen and I believe 20 or 14 soldiers. And the other 10 of the enemy. These were teen. They displayed bravery. They displayed courage. They displayed loyalty. They said, La ilaha illallah. They rejected Yazid. They rejected the dunya and defended their imam. I don't want you going this place, son, because of how the Americans are. Who cares? We're Shia. I don't want you wearing the hijab. I don't want you to face the ridicule. Who cares? We're Shia. We're the followers of Imam Hussain. Who do we fear? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or His creation? What are we going to do, my dear brothers and sisters? Let's get in gear. Let's get in gear. We have an obligation. We took a covenant. We made a promise. And if you didn't make it, you will be making it shortly, inshallah. We have to fulfill it. There's only one type of individual that breaks their promise. And the beauty is this. It's not about what happened yesterday. It's what we do tonight and tomorrow. It's not enough to cry, to hurt, to be angry, to be annoyed at the horrific events, at this tragedy, and go home and that's it. Crying is the least that we can do. There's much more that we can do. And none of it is as tragic as being on that battlefield. So much so that you have to watch, after watching all of your male companions get slaughtered, you watch at the youth of your family get slaughtered. Al and Muhammad sacrificed as well, for us as well, to be an example for our children, to be an example for parents. Zainab exemplified how a Shia parent deals with their covenant to Imam Hussain. We must not let Shaitan continue to deceive us. We must not let Shaitan continue to drive us towards the hellfire. And his assault upon us is never ending. So we have to be up to the challenge and use all of the weaponry that we can. And it's obedience. It's obedience. Al and Muhammad were honored with accompanying their uncle and their imam because of their obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of their respect to their parents. Their respect to their mothers and fathers and elders. The respect and obeying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they were honored by defending Imam Hussain. We know Al and Muhammad were there. Why were they there? Why were they honored with that? Because of their obedience, because of their loyalty, because of their relationship with their elders, and all of these different things that we must learn from. My young brothers and sisters as well as their elders. There's two sides to Karbala, the emotional and the educational. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma kun li waliyika al-Hujjati ibn al-Hasan. Salawatuka alayhi wa ala abai. Fi hadihi sa'a wa fi kulli sa'a. Waliya wa hafida. Wa qaida wa nasira. Wa dalila wa ayna. Hatta tuskinnahu ardaka ta'a'a. Wa tumati'ahu fiha tawila.